Hey everybody, Sean from Movie Assault here, and it is time once again for another video. This time around, I wanted to do an entry into the Rad Pack's Rad 9, the 9 movies that made me. And I actually didn't find this from the Rad Pack. I actually hadn't heard of the Rad Pack before, but I actually found out about it from Dee from the Movie Bay, and then Kenny from Kenny's Movie Palace did an entry. So I am going to do my entry. I'll give credit where credit is due. This is from the Rad Pack, so check out their channel as well. And these are all movies that I saw when I was younger that kind of sparked my interest in movies and the types of movies that I like, even to this day. So I'll get right into it. These are in sort of chronological order, not by order of importance or anything like that. So we'll get started right away with Godzilla, 1956 version, King of the Monsters, because I didn't see the 1954 version until I was much, much later, or much, much older. But Godzilla from 1956, the Americanized version. I saw this on a cable channel, Channel 43 from Cleveland on Superhost, who used to do horror movies and such on Saturday mornings. And I was just totally captivated by the entire story, the special effects. I was probably 7 years old when I watched Godzilla for the first time, and I am not ashamed to admit that I cried when Godzilla died at the end. Of course, he came back in another movie very shortly after that, but when the Oxygen Destroyer killed Godzilla, that killed me emotionally. So yeah, Godzilla is definitely one of the 9 movies that made me. Following up with that, it was kind of hard to pick one movie, but this sort of is in the same vein of Godzilla. I saw a lot of these movies on Superhost on Channel 43 when I was young, and the one that immediately came to mind was Earth versus the Flying Saucers. But I could lump in any Ray Harryhausen stop motion animation movie like 20 Million Miles to Earth, or It Came from Beneath the Sea, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Any of those could really take this spot, but I was really into 50s horror movies, or science fiction movies rather, with the special effects by Ray Harryhausen. Valley of the Gwangi, I think that one's from the 60s, but Ray Harryhausen, his movies just had an amazing impact on me and got me interested in how special effects were done behind the scenes. And I used to get books out of the library about it and stuff like that. So definitely, we'll say Earth versus the Flying Saucers, but you can insert any Ray Harryhausen film in right there. Next up, one of the biggest things about my upbringing watching movies was I was always watching movies with my dad if I wasn't watching movies by myself in front of the TV. And my dad always tried to get me to watch movies by saying, hey, there's a lot of action in it. So we would sit down and watch a myriad of action movies. But the one, this isn't, again, not really one movie. You could substitute a number of movies here, but one thing that comes to mind is sitting down and watching any of the Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, For a Few Dollars More, Fistful of Dollars, also Hang 'em High, Two Mules for Sister Sarah. I don't know that those aren't necessarily spaghetti westerns, but I used to go to the drive-in with my dad to see the Clint Eastwood westerns. So pretty much any of the Clint Eastwood westerns could be substituted in this slot, but I'll say these for now. Also in that is one movie that my family watched a lot together on TV. I never saw this in the theater, and I don't know that I've ever seen this uncensored, and I haven't watched this Blu-ray yet. But it was very important in my upbringing. Maybe I did see it at the drive-in once. I can't remember, but I know I watched this many, many times as a kid. Bonnie and Clyde with Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. Also, oh, who else is in this? I'm terrible with names. Michael J. Pollard, Gene Hackman, Estelle Parsons, Denver Pyle. Was directed by Arthur Penn. This, again, was one of those movies where my dad would say, hey, there's a lot of action. Action usually meant gunfights to me, but we used to watch this all the time. And another one that I used to watch on TV a lot, it was always on cable, always on Saturdays, Sundays, was Batman, the movie. And I used to watch the TV series, the 1966 Batman TV series from ABC that was in syndication when I was a kid. But this movie was always on. I remember going over one of our relatives' house and I saw that this was on TV. So all the relatives were in one room, just socializing or whatever. And me, like a total nerd, was sitting in front of the TV watching Batman the movie. This is from 1966 as well. And I don't know, this sort of sparked my love of Batman, even though it's super campy and super dopey. Just great all-around performances from everybody involved in this. You've got the bat shark repellent, Adam West as Batman, Burt Ward as Robin. Loved it. Loved the series. But this movie, I was always watching this on TV. Then I started going to the movies more often, and going to the movies became one of my favorite things to do, and it still is. And I had always been captivated around Thanksgiving time. Channel 9, WOR from New York, was on our cable, and they would always play King Kong from 1933, King Kong versus Godzilla, a lot of Godzilla movies. So I was always watching Mighty Joe Young, Son of Kong, all of those types of movies. And then in 1976, this came out, the Dino De Laurentiis version remake of King Kong, and this became my King Kong. I saw this in the theater more than any other movie up until the release of the next movie on my list. And that's what you did back then. You would just have to go to the movies multiple times to see a movie again because there was no home video back then. So this movie with Jessica Lange and Jeff Bridges, Charles Grodin, directed by John Gillerman, special effects by Rick Baker, who played the guy in the suit, who through promotional campaigns we were led to believe was a giant 40-foot robot who was actually in the film for all of maybe 40 seconds. But I went to the movies to see this at every opportunity. I saw it on double features at the drive-in. I used to go to it was called Cinema World. It was a three screen theater that was our local theater. I would go see it there just as many times as I possibly could. I probably saw this at least 8 or 9 times before it left theaters in 1977. And that's the other thing. Movies would play at the theater forever. They would come back, or they would leave, come back. So you had an opportunity to see popular movies multiple times because there just weren't as many theaters. There weren't as many movies coming out back then. That's what you did. So this was the one I saw. And you can probably guess what the next movie is. And it is Star Wars, the 1977 one. That's why I'm holding up the despecialized trilogy version, because this is my Star Wars, or at least as close to it as I can get. But my Aunt Patty took me to see Star Wars at the Columbia Theater in downtown Sharon, Pennsylvania. I am not 100% sure it was a 70mm presentation, but it sure as hell looked huge. The screen was gigantic. I remember I had bought the book, the novelization of Star Wars, and read it before going to see the movie, but the movie just completely blew the book away. Just an amazing experience going to see Star Wars. And then I was hooked. And of course I saw Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and then the prequels, and then the unfortunate sequel trilogy, and then sitting through the TV series on Disney Plus. I'm always going to be a Star Wars fan, but it's always going to be based on these 3 films. And most importantly, the original Star Wars, when it was just Star Wars, 1977, before it was Episode 4, A New Hope, it was Star Wars. And that was the movie that was important to me when I was a kid. The next movies I'm going to talk about really it's sort of, I can't pick one because it's more of an experience. And this was, again, going back to watching movies on TV. It was Peter Sellers in the Pink Panther movies, and it was probably the Pink Panther Strikes Back and Return of the Pink Panther, maybe A Shot in the Dark, Revenge of the Pink Panther, maybe. I can't remember. All I remember is laughing my head off at the Pink Panther movies. Sometimes we'd go to the theater to see them, so those are probably around 1975, 1976, somewhere in that area. And sometimes I'd watch them on TV, but I remember specifically loving them. But I can't say, it's been so long since I've seen them. I was thinking back about like what were the films that really, really captured my attention and just made me love films. And the Pink Panther movies definitely were up there. But it's been so long since I've seen them individually. I actually ordered a collection just now on eBay so I can rewatch them. But yeah, I can't say enough about those movies, even though I can't say which one or which ones I like the most, because it's all just a blur. They were all very similar, very slapsticky, which probably helped me really appreciate slapstick comedy later on, because I'm a huge fan of comedies. But yeah, the Pink Panther movies with Peter Sellers and Herbert Lom, just absolutely hilarious, and definitely on my 9 or so movies that made me who I am. And then last, but definitely not least, would be Superman, the movie from 1978. I've never considered myself a huge Superman fan, but this movie just captured me in a way that Star Wars didn't. Because I had been reading comic books, I would go to, we had a flea market in our area, and there was a woman there, and she would sell comic books for literally a dime a piece. And I bought so many Bronze Age, Silver Age comic books from this woman, and I wish I still had them because they were in pristine condition. I read them cover to cover. There was an assortment of all sorts of Superman, Batman, just an amazing array of, I can't even remember them. And they were all from the time when Batman and Superman were kind of campy, the Jimmy Olsen books, Lois Lane books. It was mostly DC stuff. But then I remember going to see, again, at the Columbia Theater in downtown Sharon, Pennsylvania, and seeing Superman on the big screen. I kind of coaxed my dad into going to see it. I remember it was wintertime, and I remember sitting there and watching the credits fly out towards the screen, and I was just hooked. I think it has aged fairly well. Some of the special effects don't hold up today, but in terms of personifying the character of Superman, Christopher Reeve has never been equaled and probably never will be. But just the experience of going to see that movie led me to immediately want to see Superman 2 when it came out, and then seeing the sequels afterwards. Those were less important to me than this one, but it was just an amazing experience and got me hooked on another aspect of going to the movies. So I really, really can't say enough about Superman the movie, making me who I am today and my love of movies. So, you know, that's why I probably enjoy superhero movies today and all the other stuff that I like. So there you go. That gives you some sort of insight into what I watched when I was growing up and in my formative years, and why I like a lot of the stuff that I like. So that's all it is. Thanks again to Movie Bay, D at the Movie Bay, for making me aware of this challenge, to the Rad Pack for creating it, and to everybody else that I've watched who's done it. It's always fun to see what movies that hooked people and really got people into movies. It's always fun. So thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I appreciate your attention span. And as always, feel free to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Take it easy.